Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. It's good to be with you here on this morning of Wednesday, December 10th. We are broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. SpaceX is currently fueling its Falcon 9 rocket at the pad at Space Launch Complex 4 East in support of the launch of the Starlink 15-11 mission, set to carry a batch of 27 Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites into low Earth orbit. Time of departure is here on your screen, 3:40 a.m. Pacific, 6:40 a.m. Eastern, 11:40 UTC for all those joining around the world. Certainly appreciate all of you who are up with us this morning. I know it's an odd hour and quite early for those, especially on the West Coast. If you haven't already, as you're settling on in, if you would be so kind as to hit that like button, share the stream to allow some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage, that would most certainly be appreciated. Our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, is running the technical operations of the broadcast today. We've got moderator Aussie Space Girl joining us from Australia, helping us out in the chat. You can make your job that much easier just by following the rules of our live chat. We ask that you post your message in English so that Stephanie and any of the other mods that might join can respond as appropriate. Also, that you hold off from delving into topics of overt politics or religion, and don't use all caps when you type your message. Emojis are perfectly fine. We just ask that you don't create a huge block of them, i.e., like 3 or 4 lines of emojis. That way, it doesn't take up a large percentage of the live chat, and others can see and read their messages. Last but certainly not least, we ask that you treat each other with the kindness and respect that you yourself would like to be treated with, and we'll all get along swimmingly. This and every other live launch opportunity are made possible in no small part thanks to our wonderful channel member community here on YouTube and their ongoing support. So thanks to folks like Fred Merck, Sulfur for Lunch, Nummy Druid, Cobra Emergency, M. Teresa, and many, many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com, access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. For those tracking launches outside of the US, there was a bit of a shuffle yesterday down in New Zealand. The Raise and Shine mission, which was set to be Rocket Lab's next Electron launch, that is now moving back to December 13th local time, and they are first launching a mission called Bridging the Swarm from Launch Complex 1. It's a technology demonstration satellite on behalf of the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, or CAST. So that's set to launch later today for us here in the United States, 7:45 p.m. Eastern departure time, about 1:45 p.m. on the 11th down in New Zealand. That'll be followed by the Raise and Shine mission, lifting off at 4 p.m. in New Zealand, 0300 UTC on the 12th, or 10 p.m. Eastern on the 11th. Meanwhile, after this mission for us, we're looking at a launch back here in Florida tomorrow afternoon, December 11th. That is the Starlink 6-90 mission. So if you haven't already, now's a good time to hit that subscribe button. Make sure you've got notifications turned on, and that way you'll be informed when we start our next live broadcast. Given this is a West Coast venture, our photographers have this mission off, but if you're not already following them on X, you can find them at their handles here. John is at John Pisani Photo, Michael at MD Kane Jr., and Adam is at 8burn NYC. Did some great work yesterday for the NROL 77 mission, the final national security flight for SpaceX of 2025, the 10th and final mission with a payload from the NRO this year. Currently, T minus 23 minutes, 25 seconds and counting. Weather over Vandenberg looking quite good today. Skies reportedly clear. Not going to be a foggy day either, which is always welcome news from Vandenberg. With just about 22 minutes remaining on the clock, let's go ahead and talk about the countdown timeline. The milestone still ahead for SpaceX as they're getting ready to fly their Falcon 9 rocket. Of course, things got rolling with the confirmation that they had to go ahead for the start of prop load, which began at T minus 35 minutes with the loading of RP1, a rocket grade kerosene on board the rocket's booster and upper stage. And liquid oxygen also began to flow aboard the booster at the same time. Half an hour before liftoff is when SpaceX started to load cryogenic helium into the pressure vessels of the Falcon 9's first stage. Did the same on the second stage a few minutes after that. The helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. Just a couple of minutes ago, second stage RP1 loading wrapped up. Coming up next is the strong back chill down, when SpaceX will thermally condition the feed lines there at the pad prior to loading liquid oxygen on board the rocket's upper stage. This process will last about 4 minutes in duration, setting things up for liquid oxygen to begin to flow at the 16-minute mark. Moving right along, T minus 7 minutes is when the engine chill begins. SpaceX flows a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, hoping to protect those engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. 6 minutes before takeoff, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. And at T minus 4.5 minutes is when the strong back retraction begins. First, the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings will open up, and then the transporter erector, otherwise referred to as the strong back, will recline a few degrees away from the, or here at Vandenberg, it reclines 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket, and it stays in that position up to and through liftoff. 3 minutes before said liftoff, the first stage liquid oxygen tank should be full. About a minute after that, same is true on the second stage, at which point the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. If all goes well, the SpaceX launch director will confirm that they are, in fact, go for launch. T minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command is issued at T minus 3 seconds. And if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, coming up at 3:40 a.m. Pacific, 6:40 a.m. Eastern, 11:40 UTC, just about 18 and a half minutes from now. Just under 18 minutes remaining. Taking a satellite view of the Golden State from the GOES West satellite, you can see conditions are clear over Vandenberg, which is certainly good news. So, hopefully, for those of you who are to the south, to the east of the pad, you'll have some good views of the Falcon 9 as it makes its ascent. Talking more specifically about this mission, let's talk a little bit more about where this Falcon 9 is going to be flying once it leaves the pad. Taking a look at a Google Earth overview of Space Launch Complex 4 East. The Falcon 9 rocket, upon departure, will fly on a southeasterly trajectory, hugging the California and Mexico coastline. The first stage booster that is supporting this mission will separate from the upper stage and then target a touchdown on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. About 8.5 minutes after liftoff. The booster flying today is tail number 1082, making its 18th trip to space and back. SpaceX is working towards certifying its first stage boosters for up to 40 flights apiece and is looking to do the same with its payload fairings. These fairing halves will be jettisoned about 3 minutes into the mission, set to splash down in the waters of the Pacific Ocean a little bit further downrange from where the booster lands on the drone ship. Once down in the water, they'll be brought aboard a recovery vessel like the one you see here on your screen, brought through the port of Long Beach, and then off to SpaceX facilities where they will be refurbished and turned around for future flights. Just under 15 minutes remaining in the count today. Talking about the payload that's on board this particular Falcon 9 rocket. As mentioned, 27 Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites. These satellites will be deployed a little more than an hour after liftoff, if all goes well. This mission is set to be the 117th deployment of Starlink satellites in 2025. These V2 Mini optimized satellites are considerably lighter than their predecessor V2 Minis. With their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters. You're taking a look at the manufacturing process as shared in this video compilation by SpaceX. They use argon Hall effect thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering. You're seeing SpaceX facilities in Redmond, Washington. These satellites will be deployed at an altitude of about 168 miles or 270 kilometers at a 70-degree inclination. And in just a second here in this B-roll, we'll see the argon Hall effect thrusters in action. There you go. Just about 12 minutes remaining in the count, roughly 5 minutes away from the engine chill sequence. SpaceX set a goal for themselves of achieving 170 Falcon 9 launches by the end of the year. They're getting close to hitting that benchmark. This will be the 160th launch of a Falcon 9 rocket so far in 2025. If all continues to move on the current schedule by the end of the most recently announced launch, which is now currently looking at the 15th, SpaceX will have flown their 164th Falcon 9. As we are awaiting the pad level views, the Falcon 9 rocket and the mission audio, which should be starting at around 5 minutes before flight. Let's go ahead and talk about the Falcon 9 rocket, SpaceX's workhorse vehicle. Rocket stands at a height of 70 meters or 229 feet. It has diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. Most of that is made up by the rocket's booster. Jumping ahead of myself here. Let's try that again. Again, the booster that is flying today is B-1082, which is making its 18th flight. At the base of the first stage are 9 Merlin engines, which burn a rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen. Together, they produce 1.7 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. Around the engine compartment are black carbon fiber landing legs that will be used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. Above the first stage is that inner stage, which is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core surrounded by carbon fiber. In that image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 rocket as it comes back through the atmosphere, tail first like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the vehicle's second stage, and at first stage main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure that there is a clean separation. The second stage engine nozzle is safely housed inside the interstage adapter until the point of stage separation. Speaking of that second stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 is powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine or an MVAC engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust, and it will be fired twice on today's flight to place the 27 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. The MVAC engine burns the same prop mix as the booster, LOX, and RP-1. There will be one final deorbit burn performed after the deployment of the Starlink satellites, driving the upper stage back into the atmosphere, where it's designed to burn up and help reduce the risk of creating space debris on this mission. Finally, at the top of the Falcon 9 rocket are the payload fairings, which are currently encapsulating those 27 Starlink satellites. The fairings are made up of a carbon composite material and stand at 13.1 meters or 43 feet in height and are 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. The two halves of the payload fairings will be recovered a little bit further downrange from where the booster lands on the drone ship. Following atmospheric reentry, they make their final splashdown in the Pacific Ocean under the support of steerable parachutes. Approaching the final 6-minute mark and the point at which SpaceX finishes loading RP-1 on board the rocket's booster.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressing for strong back retract.
And as you just heard and can now see, we've got pad level views and mission audio coming from SpaceX and a wonderfully clear view of the Falcon 9 rocket.
Strong back retract has started.
You can see the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings are opening up, and next that large truss structure. There you go, the strong back now in motion. It pulls back about 13 degrees away from the rocket, and it stays in that position after it finishes moving up to and through liftoff. And for those who are in California hoping to catch a glimpse of the Falcon 9 rocket as it takes flight, just be aware, according to one of the folks in the live chat, Bojoku66, the video today has an 8-second delay from real time there in California.
Stage 1
So
box load is complete.
as you're watching the countdown here, be aware that you'll want to head out right before I start the final 10 seconds in the count. And obviously there's some delay from the YouTube broadcast going out to all of you to the exact moment of real-time liftoff there in California. So if you want to not miss any possible part of this mission for yourselves, just bear that in mind.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And with that call, the Falcon 9 rocket is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant.
Ground gas closeouts.
That call there referring to the venting you're seeing from the strong back as SpaceX releases the remaining liquid oxygen from the feed lines there. That super cold densified liquid oxygen, once it hits the air, it condenses into that cloud-like venting.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
With that call, we are awaiting the SpaceX launch director to confirm that they are in fact go for launch.
The launch director is go for launch.
And with that good call, we're going to step back on our commentary, listen along with you for the final 30 seconds, and we'll be back with you on the other side of liftoff.
T minus 3 seconds. T minus 15 seconds. T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go Starlink.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressure is nominal.
Power and telemetry nominal. Falcon is supersonic.
Little more than a minute
Max
into
Q.
the flight, and as you just heard, max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. SpaceX will be throttling its engines back up now that it has passed through this point in the mission. Coming up on MVAC chill, the thermal conditioning of the Merlin vacuum engine.
MVAC chill.
Good call there. SpaceX has a few events coming up next in fairly quick succession. We'll see first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at about T plus 2 minutes and 25 seconds into flight. That'll be followed by stage separation and then the ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine. Payload fairings will jettison around the 3-minute mark. Less than 20 seconds to MECO.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC startup.
There you can see the hypersonic grid fins are deploying.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And a good separation call for the payload fairings. A nice view of the Starlink satellites on board. Fairing halves will be recovered further downrange from where the booster lands on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. We're now a little more than 3 minutes into this flight. Coming up next in about 3 minutes is the start of the 3-engine entry burn.
Both vehicles are on a nominal trajectory.
Sounds like a number of folks in the live chat were able to see the launch, which is always good to hear. Although it may not have been visible in Vegas, apparently, which is a bit of a bummer, but maybe next time. Coming up on 5 minutes into flight. Again, the start of the entry burn set to take place a little bit after T plus 6 minutes. That burn lasts a little bit more than 20 seconds in duration. There's a view up through the interstage on the left-hand side of your screen. Less than 30 seconds now to the start of the entry burn.
Both vehicles continue to follow a nominal trajectory.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
Stage 1 entry burn startup. Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And with the conclusion of the entry burn, SpaceX now turns its attention to the start of the single engine landing burn, which is set to begin right about T plus 8 minutes.
Stage 1 transonic.
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
First stage booster now traveling below the speed of sound, and the second stage flight termination system has been safed. No longer needed at this stage in the mission.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn. Landing led deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And a good touchdown for the booster B-1082, wrapping up its
And back
18th
shutdown.
flight.
Nominal park orbit insertion.
And with a confirmation of a nominal orbit insertion, the upper stage will now remain in that parking orbit until about T plus 52 minutes and 24 seconds. There will be a brief 2-second burn to circularize its orbit, and then the Starlink satellites will be deployed at T plus 1 hour, 1 minute, and 16 seconds post liftoff. And with that, we're going to go ahead and proceed into our mission stats as they currently stand. With a good liftoff and landing of the first stage booster, that wrapped up again. Flight number 18 for B-1082. This was the 577th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 160th of the year so far. This is SpaceX's 169th orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 168th orbital launch from Space Launch Complex 4 East from SpaceX, and the 237th overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Here's a look at the bar chart now where things stand this year versus years prior. And I have to add a new section after launch tomorrow for flight number 161. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 169th successful landing on the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, marking SpaceX's 499th drone ship landing, the 548th Falcon booster landing, and the 549th overall booster landing, including New Glenn. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 64th orbital launch from California this year, the 169th from U.S. soil, the 184th from a U.S. rocket company, the 294th orbital launch around the world. There have been 6 orbital mishaps so far. Here's where the pie chart currently stands. In between the launch yesterday and this flight here, we had one more flight from China. CAS Space's Kinetica 1 rocket had a successful flight. That was the 11th launch of a Kinetica 1 rocket. And that will do it for us today here on our coverage of the Starlink 15-11 mission. SpaceX will confirm deployment a little bit after those Starlink satellites separate, which is just about an hour post liftoff. Again, as a reminder, we have our next launch that we've got a live stream for coming up tomorrow afternoon. That is for the Starlink 6-90 mission, set to lift off just about 2 p.m. Eastern, 1:59 to be exact, 18:59 UTC. So certainly hope you are able to join us then. And again, for those of you who are going to be at the Space Power Conference this week, tomorrow and Friday, if you do happen to cross paths with me, be sure to stop me and say hello. It's always wonderful to meet folks out and about in the real world. I want to thank our moderator, Aussie Space Girl, for helping us out with the live chat today. Thanks as well to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast. Most importantly, though, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from. Certainly appreciate your time and attention and look forward to welcoming you back in very soon. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I am Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. Until then, bye-bye.